The world was locked in ice. Endless plains stretched far and wide, broken only by the silhouettes of ancient pines and the dark ridges of distant mountains. The air was sharp and cruel, slicing into lungs with each breath, but the band of Neanderthals pressed forward, their fur-wrapped bodies moving with steady determination. Hunger had carved lines into their faces, and their heavy steps left deep impressions in the snow. It had been 6 days since they had brought down their last reindeer, and the tribe's survival now hinged on finding food before weakness overtook them. At the front of the group strode Kor, broad-shouldered, his thick brow shadowing sharp, watchful eyes. In one hand he carried a spear tipped with sharpened stone, bound with sinew and hardened by fire. His nostrils flared as he sniffed the air, a hunter's instinct searching for the faintest scent of prey. Behind him, 5 others followed, 2 men, 2 women, and a youth nearly grown. Their movements were silent, practiced, for noise could scatter herds long before the hunters drew near. The snow crunched beneath their fur-wrapped feet as they climbed a low ridge. At its peak, Kor raised a hand, halting the party. All crouched low, eyes fixed on the horizon. At first, the tundra seemed lifeless, a wasteland of ice and shadows. Then one of the women, Nara, pointed toward a flicker of movement against the white expanse. Through the shifting curtain of snowfall, dark shapes emerged, an entire herd of woolly reindeer, their breath steaming in the frigid air. The hunters exchanged glances, their eyes sparking with a mixture of hope and urgency. This was the moment they had been waiting for. Without the kill, the tribe would weaken, children would starve. With it, they could eat, clothe themselves, and craft tools from bone and sinew. Every life in the camp depended on what they would do in the next few moments. Kor crouched low, signaling the plan with sharp gestures. The hunters fanned out, moving in silence, their fur blending with the broken landscape. They had no bows, no long-range weapons, only their endurance, their cunning, and their spears. The strategy was simple and dangerous: drive the herd into confusion, isolate a weaker animal, and bring it down through sheer persistence. The reindeer grazed, unaware of the danger. Then, with a cry like thunder, the hunters surged forward. Snow flew beneath their feet as they charged, their voices rising in primal shouts. The herd startled, heads jerking up, and then bolted, hooves thundering across the tundra. The chase began. Kor sprinted with astonishing speed for his stocky frame, each breath sending clouds of steam into the air. He fixed his eyes on a young reindeer at the edge of the herd, its legs thinner, its movements less steady. With a roar, he hurled his spear. It struck, glancing off the animal's flank, drawing blood but not enough to kill. The creature stumbled, panicked, and fell behind. The others closed in, spears raised, every heartbeat drumming with the urgency of survival. In that frozen moment, the strength of ancient humans burned bright against the desolation of the Ice Age. The hunt had been long, but it was not in vain. Hours after the chase, the hunters returned, dragging the carcass of the fallen reindeer across the snow. Their arms ached, their legs trembled from exhaustion, but their spirits lifted with every step closer to the cave. Behind them, a trail of crimson marked their path, proof of victory carved into the white silence of winter. As they entered the sheltering mouth of the cave, a rush of warmth and flickering light greeted them. The fire burned at the center, its flames dancing and snapping, pushing back the darkness. Children stirred from their corner, wide-eyed and eager. Their small voices rose in excitement, though quickly hushed by their mothers, who knew noise carried even in the depths of stone. Still, the joy in their eyes could not be silenced. The hunters lowered the heavy body near the fire. Knives of flint flashed in the glow as sinew and muscle were cut, the thick hide stripped away with practiced skill. Women worked beside the men, separating fat, marrow, and meat into portions. Every piece had its purpose: skin for clothing, bones for tools, fat for fuel, and meat for life. Nothing would be wasted, waste was death. The smell of roasting flesh soon filled the cavern, rich and heavy. Strips of meat sizzled on flat stones near the fire, fat dripping into the flames with a hiss. Hungry mouths watered, and children edged closer, their faces flushed from heat and anticipation. An elder, his beard streaked with gray, chanted low and rhythmic as he carved patterns into a bone. His voice carried the weight of memory, a song of gratitude for the life taken, a reminder that the hunt was not just survival but a bond with the land and its creatures. On the rough walls, shadows flickered across the primitive drawings scratched and painted with ochre and charcoal. Images of bison, mammoths, and hunters danced with the firelight, merging past and present. For the tribe, these were not decorations, they were stories, lessons, warnings for the next generation. As the first strips of meat were shared, a calm settled over the group. Hunger eased, and laughter, rare and fleeting, rose among them. The fire crackled louder, as though proud to guard them against the winter night. In this fragile circle of warmth and light, the Neanderthals were more than survivors, they were a family bound by fire, blood, and will. Winter deepened, and the days grew darker. Snowstorms swept across the tundra, sealing the world in silence. What had once been difficult now became perilous. The reindeer herds that had saved the tribe moved on, chasing grasses beneath distant drifts, leaving emptiness in their wake. Hunger began to return, creeping into the cave like an invisible predator. The tribe ventured out in smaller groups, scavenging for roots, berries hardened by frost, and the occasional hare that dared cross their path. But the land was ruthless, offering little to those who depended on it. At night, the howls began. First one, then many, wolves, gaunt with hunger, circling the edge of the campfire's glow. Their eyes, yellow and burning, flickered in the darkness beyond the cave mouth. Kor and the other hunters stood guard, gripping their spears tightly. They shouted into the night, stamping their feet, throwing stones into the shadows to drive the beasts back. The wolves retreated, but only far enough to wait, patient and relentless. The fire was the only shield, and every hunter knew that if it died, so too would they. Inside, a different battle raged. Shaw, the youngest of the group, lay pale and trembling on a bed of furs. A cough shook her small chest, and her breath came shallow, raspy. Her mother cradled her, pressing broth made from marrow to her lips, whispering low prayers. Others gathered close, offering warmth, wrapping their own furs around her fragile body. In this world, sickness was as deadly as any predator, and no hunter's spear could fight it. The days dragged, and fear grew. Would Shaw survive? Would the wolves break through? Would the storm ever end? Yet, through every trial, the tribe endured. They shared what little food remained, rationing carefully. They fed the fire constantly, trading sleep for vigilance. They faced each day with the stubborn will of those who knew there was no choice but to resist. The world outside was merciless, but within the cave, unity gave them strength. Against hunger, sickness, and predators, they held fast together. They were not many, they were not mighty, but they were Neanderthals, forged by struggle, unbroken by the cruelty of nature. The storms slowly weakened, and with them the grip of winter loosened. Patches of gray earth appeared where the snow had melted away, and thin blades of grass pushed through the frost. The tribe stepped cautiously from the cave, blinking in the pale sunlight, their breath no longer turning to clouds so quickly in the air. They had survived. The carcass of winter still clung to them, hollow cheeks, tired limbs, and scars etched deeper into their faces, but their spirits lifted at the sight of change. Birds returned first, their calls sharp and bright against the silence that had ruled for months. Then came the herds, woolly reindeer and bison moving in slow, powerful rhythms across the plains, their shaggy forms stirring hope in the hunters' hearts. Food would once again walk before them. Children laughed, stumbling through the softening snow, chasing one another with sticks that would one day become spears. Their joy was the truest sign of survival. The young had lived, carried through the cold by the sacrifice of their elders. Shaw, once sick and weak, now toddled outside her mother's arms, still thin but breathing strong, her small steps a victory for the entire group. By the fire, the elders gathered the tribe, speaking in low, rough voices, their words heavy with meaning. They told stories of the winter, of the hunt that saved them, of the wolves that circled but did not take them, of the child who fought the sickness and lived. Each story was not only memory but teaching, carved into the minds of the young as surely as the cave walls bore the images of beasts. The hunters prepared once more, sharpening spears, shaping flint, and stretching hides into stronger garments. They did not waste time with pride. Survival meant readiness, and readiness meant life. Yet beneath their work lay an unspoken truth. They had endured one of the harshest winters their world could offer, and because of that, they stood stronger now. The tribe looked out over the plains as the sun broke fully over the horizon, painting the land gold. They did not know of the future, of the millennia to come, or the descendants who would inherit the earth. But in that moment, they understood what mattered. They were alive. They were together. They were Neanderthals, resilient, unyielding, and bound to the land that tested them, season after season.